This podcast is brought to you by Kiwi Design, the leader in metaquest and VR accessories. And now you can deck out your device while supporting the podcast. The metaquest 2 is a great headset, but do you ever feel things could be a bit more comfortable? Well, we have the solution for you. With lens protectors, controller grips, face covers, head straps, link cables, headset stands, and more, including my two personal favorites, the top version controller grips with added weight and an extended handle, and the Kiwi upgraded Elite strap. Let's be real, we've all whacked our controller. Don't be the guy messaging Oculus support for your own mistake or waiting weeks for an out-of-stock controller. Visit the link in our show notes to prepare yourself today. After visiting the link in our show notes, make sure to use the promo code Ruff Talk VR at checkout, all one word, to take full advantage of your savings. And make sure to click the link in our show notes so the podcast gets credit and you help support us. Remember, whatever you need, Kiwi has you covered. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Ruff Talk VR. We have a real fun one I'm so excited for. You know, oftentimes on the podcast when we're doing interviews, we're talking with developers, we're talking with, you know, we've talked with one person from Meta before, maybe some community managers, but this one's a real special one.
I know you've been stoked for this.
Oh yeah, today we're talking with Brad Lynch. You know, you might know him by his YouTube handle, SadlyItsBradley,
which is a great handle, by the way.
Yeah, you chuckled the second you saw it.
SadlyItsBradley.
It's got a nice roll off the tongue. You know, Bradley has become very known for his leaks, especially in the last year, where you've gotten some.
I'm when you were discussing him with me prior to any involvement of getting him on the show. I mean, I was probably pretty skeptical of like that can't be true. This can't be true. But then you laid it all out from like where he's started from to where we're at today with these. I won't call them leaks. I'll call them information.
Yeah,
at this point, because
it's not like rumors or anything. I'd say with your recent track record, most things seem to be true, at least at this point in it. You know, it's one thing when you're first starting out with leaks and everything like that.
So but I'm excited to hear how this all started and how we got here today.
Yeah. So before we get too carried away, hyping you up and everything like that, Bradley, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners in case they really don't know who exactly you are?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brad. I mean, you guys pretty much covered it. I guess I do YouTube. I've been doing YouTube or VR YouTube for about 7 years now. But I've only been doing this weird like hardware analyst and like I guess leaker side of things for almost a year and a half now, I would say. I was very bad at it at the start. I'll be completely honest. I was garbage. But we can talk about how those things improved and how maybe why people want to talk to me and give these informations where I can spread them. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I see upcoming hardware as a detective game, but in real life, like a big ARG, and it's fun for me. And that's what I do now.
And you started this about a year ago?
Yeah, about like summer last year is when I wanted to start trying to see how I can do, because no one really covers leaks for hardware in the VR scene. I noticed you always see like leaks for Apple devices and stuff, and I was like, oh, you know, this industry's ramping up. I wonder if I can do this for VR hardware, and yeah, that's what I do now.
So, did you literally like wake up in the morning and just be like, I want to be a leak guy? I mean, because I can't wrap my head around like where does one even like get the idea in their head, and then to go, well, how can I actually do this? How am I going to get this information?
Gotcha. That makes sense. I think what started this wasn't really I wasn't really expecting to do it for, like, now I research every company's device, right? But at the beginning I was very I'm a bit of a Valve shill, I guess you could say. Like I'm very big on trying to figure out what Valve was working on next for their hardware ambitions for VR, because I've always aligned with their principles and what they like to do, and I knew they're working on something. And it started with me pretty much reading every single one of their VR patents, literally. And by doing that, I started to get an appreciation for all of the little pieces that go into VR hardware to make it good. And I got addicted to really the hardware technology side, and really what small component improvements we might get over the years to get maybe to a minimum viable product better than what we have today. But it wasn't until like September, a few months after I was just like kind of talking about patents and stuff, that me and a friend started actually data mining the Steam VR software, trying to see if we could find anything related to Valve's next hardware project. And we did. We found a lot of stuff that happened to be there for almost a year, actually. It's just no one cared, to data mine Steam VR. And we found like code names to Deckard, which is like their project internally, what they call it. And Ars Technica basically put out an article saying, yeah, this Brad guy, he's not lying about this Deckard thing. Like, our sources say that's a thing happening at Valve. And I think at that point, it changed from something I was doing kind of just for fun to like, oh, this is really fun, and like, I can do this more often and make it like a thing. And it just grew to other companies from Valve at that point on.
Yeah, I'll admit that's when I first really started to pay attention and notice you. We had just kind of, we started the podcast. I was definitely a Twitter noob. I didn't really understand it. So I always kept seeing you pop up with like, Valve Deckard, Valve Deckard, Valve Deckard. I was like, damn, this guy really loves Valve. And what is this Deckard thing? So, based off of what you found so far, it's looking to be a standalone headset. Is that correct?
I think it's complicated. So I did a whole video actually this week. It's an hour long, but it basically lays out every single little piece that me and I kind of like a small group of data miners at this point now, because once you become a public figure, a lot of people who are just as passionate you want to work together to find information with you. But yeah, I pretty much laid out in this whole video what we think it is. Obviously, it's always speculation. I mark my videos as that when it comes to like, because things can always change. But we think there is like a standalone component to it. But at the end of the day, we think Valve is still kind of focused on their PC VR enthusiast crowd more than anything, and they just want to put SoCs in their headsets in the beginning to improve the PC VR experience, if that makes sense. Kind of similar to how people buy Quest 2s and then just use it with virtual desktop all the time. Like, that's kind of how we feel about Valve's next project.
That's a smart move. I think that you could make a strong argument that the Quest 2, while it might have distracted the developmental route that developers take with, which games they're going to focus on, I think you can make an argument it's also increased the PC VR fan base, just because, so many people do buy a standalone headset. They kind of max out which games are on there. They're like, all right, what else is there? And then they see that there's PC VR and then kind of go down that rabbit hole. So that would be a really smart business move from Valve to have both,
Well, yeah, and Valve's PC market is...
Come on, that's Steam, baby. Valve's OGs right there.
Oh, my Steam code is so old.
And I think the short term is like the focus on the enthusiast, but over the long term, as like chips get better and lower power, I mean, they've made so many comments about how they would love to put like an APU that they put in Steam Deck inside of a headset. But they're a company that has less than 400 employees, so I think there's some like steps they got to take slowly over time to first build the ecosystem of their operating system. Like, the Steam Decks are really their first big custom built operating system for something that they've made. And I think over time, again, like they partner with AMD, they're gonna keep getting to that goal of where they can have a headset that can run every Steam VR game at one point completely on the head. But yeah.
Admittingly, I've been very intrigued by the Steam Deck for quite some time. It looks like a really big step up in portable handheld gaming. That and the Switch, it's like, wow, this past year it's been good with standalone gaming. So I mean, I guess I'll hop right into it. I've been, seeing the rumors of this for a little over a year now. Do you have any idea of when you think the headset might drop, or is it still kind of like the Apple VR headset? It's coming.
It's there. You just don't know.
Yeah.
I think comparing it to the Apple VR headset is the most. Yeah, I think that's a safer goal. I mean, Valve's like kind of, so I would say the Valve, like following the Valve hardware stuff is like my passionate project of all this like leak stuff. But when I compare Valve to like Apple or Meta or even Pico now, the supply chain doesn't care about Valve. so it's hard to like figure out ever if they're ordering components, because they're not even if they do start going to mass production, they're not going to be ordering uh the quantities like a company like Meta is going to do. So it's way harder to pinpoint like just those things. And again, like there's only 400 employees as well. So like if even one of them does start leaking information to me of like release dates and stuff, it's gonna be a lot more obvious than someone like at Meta, for example, leaking stuff. So yeah, I never guess Valve time basically.
Yep. Is it kind of like Valve is the big passion, and then the Meta ones kind of get the clicks on the website?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I actually think most of my community want me to leak Valve stuff more. Honestly, I begrudgingly leak Meta stuff because people appreciate. I should say people appreciate my passion, and like, there's a lot of effort, not just like trying to leak something, but like, I really put an effort into understanding the technology and explaining how these things work. And I notice a lot of people who are in the engineering mindset for VR, they always like following my channel anyway, because someone might leak, like let's say someone leaks CAD images to just some random other VR YouTuber. They're not gonna be able to explain all the technologies going on in like a CAD image very well. So I think there's a little bit of a appreciation there, and why people might want to come to me more in that regard, if that makes sense.
Yep,
That makes total sense.
it's also a little bit like a snowball when you're nobody, somebody who wants to leak, they don't know who to go to, but it's like WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks starts to get some traction, all of a sudden everybody's going to them to, now they have a spot to drop it. So it also starts to become that maybe 2 years ago somebody would want to leak stuff, but how do I do it? Now it's like, oh, well, I know that guy's not going to give my name out or anything like that. I guess I'll go to Bradley.
If the credibility of the leaks, the accuracy is more often than not correct, then yeah, I could see people being like, you know what, this works for all parties involved at this point. It's not even so much a leak as it is almost a marketing strategy from a corporate sense is how I see it.
Well, and something I get a big appreciation for how you do it. It's not just sources and stuff like that. It's what you referenced before, going through the patents, and also, hey, they just dropped a software update. Let me see if the name Deckard comes up anywhere, anything like that. So I've referenced it before. You kind of referenced in the beginning. It's a little bit of a learning experience how to leak. You improve with it over time. What were some of the, I guess, trials and tribulations that you went through in starting this journey?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was definitely not like other than the Deckard thing. I kind of tried to branch out too fast, too early, and it kind of hurt me back then. I would say I've made up for it since then, but definitely finding those sources and being able to vet sources is like the hardest thing probably if you want to become a leaker, I guess, because really when you get information from someone and you're just starting out, it's hard. You don't have like a multiple amount of people to cross reference something with, and there's always people that will try to feed you, like even now there'll always be people that try to feed you fake leaks all the time. And that's probably one of the hardest things for new people to deal with that don't have a multitude of people to cross reference with. So yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge. I do agree with what you're saying, is like it kind of becomes like a snowball rolling down a hill where you once you start becoming more credible, more people will start coming out to you, and that's definitely how it has been for me. It's to the point where if I can kind of like poke comments in my videos, I'll be like, I don't know why they're doing this. I'll say that in my video, and then all of a sudden I'll get an email that day from like 5 different people like, this is what we heard. This is what is actually going on. So like it's gotten way easier for me in that regard. Yeah.
How's from the feedback of, I guess, the consumer or the keyboard warrior, however you want to look at it, depending, is it been like 50-50 or like 70% more positive? Or I mean, I'm sure there's got to be some level of toxicity involved with posting info.
I think uh okay, well I'll say after MetaConnect, the toxicity has almost gone down to zero. I would say. It's gotten way better. There was a point like probably this whole year I wouldn't even be able to go on Reddit if I made a video because uh I don't know, maybe someone who's a fan of me would would be like, oh well, Brad said this in his latest video, and that person would get like a billion comments saying oh, that Brad guy's a liar, like a terrible person or whatever. And so I wouldn't even be able to go on Reddit for VR stuff anymore for a while. But it's kind of like flipped actually, where people saw the Quest Pro stuff and like the credibility is there. I would say the most pushback I get at this point for leaking stuff is from I think people who rely on the hype cycle in this industry don't like me kind of leaking stuff and ruining that hype cycle. I'm not gonna say like which group of people there are,
Yeah.
but I've started to hear like complaints like, man, I just signed an embargo with this company, but this Brad guy didn't, and he's already leaking all my my hype fueled stuff, So
Well, I mean, one could also argue you don't actually have to click on anything to read it and get upset about it. So part of the onus is on the individual to,
Well,
like,
and
I've self-centered for games we've reviewed because I didn't want to read any pre-existing comments for it. I didn't want to see screenshots of it,
and that
and I
complaint
didn't.
is rooted in like jealousy
Yeah.
in the end, because you're like, oh, I'm upset because I couldn't be the first one to get the clicks for that claim, and he beat me to it.
But I'm starting to get an appreciation for I thought like leaks just really consisted of, like, hey,
Letter
someone
under the
sends you
door,
an email or just a phone call.
pigeon comes flying into the
I
window.
didn't expect to like think that the level, data mining for info or having to really start, ground up learning all the different features of the technology. So when you hear something, you know what to look for or
Well,
how much chips a company might be ordering.
to me, that's what separates Bradley from a lot of the other people, and especially at this point in time separates you from maybe when you first started. It's really analytical stuff. It's not just, hey,
Mhm.
somebody told me who I can't tell you who. It's like really like, hey, if you want to go in there and look at the code yourself, there it is. It says it right. It's
Yeah. So there's obviously a lengthy amount of process and work going on. And
yeah.
I'll admit, 15 minutes ago had zero appreciation for because I thought this was a totally different situation.
Yeah, I'll say your MetaQuest Pro leaks is what I think will go down,
Yeah,
5
that
years
was
from now.
pretty
That'll be,
spot on.
that's what solidified you. I think just about everything that you had said over the course of like 3 or 4 months ended up being true, maybe even longer, ended up being true. The one thing that didn't carry over at one point, I think you were saying that they weren't going to ship with controllers, but perhaps that was something that they were actually playing with. And then the removal of the depth sensor, which it does seem like it was there. And I love the reasoning that you said that you might have found out of why it was removed.
Yeah, I tried to ask multiple people about that because I was dying to find out. Like that was the most hilarious thing. Like that was one of those things when someone told me, it was just like so crazy when I was hearing it. I was like,
It
I gotta ask everyone, but
it's
I couldn't get like clear answers.
it's
So that's
believable
why
to
I
me.
marked it as like Omega rumor when I tweeted that.
For
But
anybody who didn't see that, I think you had said that you had possibly heard from somebody that there was some privacy issues with the ability to see through clothes with that depth sensor. But to my knowledge, I don't think that's the first piece of technology that's ever had that issue either. Like it's something that it's plausible.
well, basically, what the depth sensor was for people who weren't like, and by the way, I think Upload VR recently did an article that even Mark Zuckerberg a few months ago said that there was going to be this in the headset when it released. So it's not that I think this is the best example of how like products can change like a last minute. This was like literally a last minute change. But anyway, back to that thing. Like the depth sensor was more so like a laser going into a men's mirror and bouncing it to make an IR projection, laser based IR projection in like a room and like everything in front of the headset. Which those black and white IR based cameras would be able to see the contours of everything way better. So, and we already saw like smartphones with like very sensitive IR cameras already kind of see-through thin clothes. So if you like have a laser-based IR projector matched with a camera like that already, it probably would, I would speculate, do some things like that. But I am so disappointed, by the way, that they removed that. Like, I think that would have been like the most like I'm not even mad that was not like, I'm not even mad from a prediction perspective that was not in there. I'm mad from like, I can't believe they're releasing a mixed reality device without it, and it's whatever. I can get a whole rant about that, but yeah.
Well, if anyone's ever flown in or walked through an airport in the past 10 years, you've gone through scanners that can see
Oh yeah, dude,
far
this
better
sounds.
than, any Quest headset's going to see through your clothes.
And do you think that? Do you think if it did have the depth sensor, we'd see a higher price tag, or do you think it, that would still be, because the 1500 is pretty. I mean, I get it; it's an enterprise headset, but it's definitely
It's
a premium.
professional.
It's definitely a premium price tag.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the timeline about this price thing. So, okay, no, I was told the price before I was told that they had to change the device at the last minute. So this price tag we see today, they were already kind of keeping that
Mm-hmm.
in mind. So the fact they removed it and kept the price is another little like,
Maybe that's
they're
why.
making, Mark Zuckerberg made some comments saying that they're not making any hardware money on this hardware. He is lying. Like, he is such a dirty liar for saying that. I know the price of the full kit just to like build and mass produce. No, it's so opposite.
Yeah,
Anyway.
maybe if he's counting like research and development costs into it, then you could maybe.
No, well, R&D shouldn't be part of that,
But
though.
do you think that that even applies for the Quest 2, which a lot of people speculated was subsidized, or do you think that that's only for the Quest Pro?
I think when the Quest 2 was at $300, it was like, the bill of materials wasn't exactly $300, but like when you start adding all the other stuff up, then yeah, you
Shipping,
are.
transportation, and
Yeah, then you are starting to get a huge loss just from that. But we're talking about like, gosh, a price disparity of maybe $100. From what I heard from the supply chain, and everything else that I heard from this person in the supply chain has been right so far. The full kit cost about $750 to build the full kit, so they're selling it at almost double that cost to build, which is way different than like what the Quest 2 ever was, even at 300, even at 400. And by the way, just to comment, I just want to talk about the Quest 2 price range raise, because they also said that they raised the price because of the like supply chain issues and stuff. Well, a lot of those components have actually gotten cheaper over years, especially the SoC. And it was really funny when Carmack basically said one of the main reasons they increased the price was people were not buying content on their store. They were either they were buying a cheap Quest 2 to either play all the free games or like plugging into Steam VR. It's just like, you can't listen to these executives. They're trying to sell you. They're trying to grift you guys. Like, I swear to God, it drives me nuts every time when you like have these people whispering in your ears and telling you like the full truth, and then you see these people go on stage and be like, "We're an open platform, not making any money on this $1,500 headset."
Mhm.
Just
Well,
double.
and that 750 price range kind of sounds a little bit believable with the Pico Pro, the
Mhm.
Pico 4 Pro that they just announced is 800, correct?
800, yeah.
So, that sounds believable, especially because the Pico 4 Pro seems very similar to the Quest Pro.
Yeah, I will say, like, from like, the Pico 4 Pro is very similar to Pico 4 in terms of like all the components and how they're building it. And I will say the Quest Pro like is considerably more expensive to build than the Pico 4 Pro even. But yeah, at least they're not. I mean, I don't think anyone at Pico is pretending that they're not making a profit on that enterprise model. So that's where a lot of my issues come from. Really, it's just like, this constant like. I don't want to get more into it. I think
Yeah,
I've said enough.
I get what you're saying, though.
Well, I can imagine once you're in the weeds of it and you see
then the question is, what would have been the real fairest price for the Quest Pro? Like $1,999.99.
I think if it kept the depth sensor, I would have been totally okay with the $1,500 because it would have improved the entire product way more. Because I kept hearing from people like they were saying the scene understanding and like the hand tracking was amazing with it installed. And going back to the thing, the source that told me that they would sell the controllers separate, very good source. That's all I can say. So that was definitely something that they were going to do at one point. And that was before they removed the depth sensor. And one of the things that even Mark Zuckerberg said about the depth sensor was it was going to improve the hand tracking quality immensely. So when you think of it from a strategic standpoint, where they could have sold just the HMD for like a hand tracking only version, cheaper, would have been easier for consumers to buy on, and then maybe upgrade to controllers for both Quest 2 and Quest Pro. You can see why they were thinking about it at one time, and then they decide, oh, let's cut the depth sensor, and it's not going to have good hand tracking anymore. Well, then you can't do that. It ruins that strategy plan.
It definitely does sound like a little last minute scrambled eggs, pick up the pieces that are falling. Like, all right, let's get this shit out feeling with that release with the removal of the depth sensor.
Or maybe the concern of the possible litigation from somebody being offended by a
I know
camera in their house seeing them better. I mean, I don't.
Meta
to me, it's fallen on deaf ears. It's like I would have preferred it, obviously.
Yeah, Meta doesn't have the best reputation. Example, if Google pumps out a phone and it accidentally has that feature, I think they're going to be able to brush away the scandal.
Yeah,
like
shit happens.
Phones have exploded on planes,
Facebook
and people are like, all right, when's the next one coming out? Meta pulls that shit, they'll be labeled as domestic terrorists. So I also think it's that they understood their reputation.
Yeah.
And, the market.
It's just unfortunate because the consumer at the end of the day suffers. So.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. And I also think this market's still very not mainstream. So if like a expensive pair of VR goggles, whatever you want to call it, comes out and it comes from the company that's spending $3 billion per quarter, and it ends up being a perv device, it's going to be damaging the whole industry if that happens. Like honestly, like everyone's going to look at future headsets from all companies and they'll be like, oh, another perv device is coming out, great. Like Google Glass, when that was like, remember there was a whole ordeal with Google Glass and like the glass holes and stuff. That put back the AR stuff for years, because just from the crazy media madness frenzy from that. Now pretty much products have come out that's even more invasive than Google Glass, and people are like, eh. So yeah,
I know it's strange
very
how
important to keep an eye on those things.
10 years ago the reaction would have been a lot different than, but you can I do get, I guess, where Meta's coming from with the it's just not worth it.
I think they know their role in the industry.
I think in the future,
yeah. Google Glass was definitely way ahead of its time. I've long said that. It's like, man, if that were to drop today, it's the Facebook Ray-Bans.
Yeah, but it was creepy. I mean, I won't lie, it was creepy because it was.
But what's the difference?
I mean, that was also a time where like walking around, not everyone was sitting there recording everything.
Well, I think that's why it was ahead of its time. If that drops, today, like other AR glasses are, we're already used to people walking around.
There were some fights involved with those glasses.
Doing some. I think the biggest conflict with them these days would be like those comedy and music shows that don't allow you. You have to put your phone in a bag so you don't record. That would probably be glasses. Yeah, that's probably the biggest you'd be like, no, bro, these aren't a cell phone. This is regular glasses. I need them to see.
Yeah, but they were pretty pervy back in the day.
Well, at least with a Quest Pro too, it's like it's pretty obvious if somebody's walking around outside trying to look at people, like going into a clothing store. Dude, you see somebody walk into a clothing store with a headset on, you know what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's only one reason you're walking in here like that. That's funny. Just to kind of jump around a little bit though, because you mentioned that you had been YouTubing about VR for the past 6 years, but you just only really did this the past, year or so. What were you kind of up to back then, and what was your, I guess, popularity versus where it's at now?
I've done a ton of different types of content on YouTube. I started out like, the normal, back when no one had a VR headset, it made sense to do like Let's Play content, I think, back then, because there'd be so many people that couldn't buy an $800 headset and then PC, and there were some cool games. I mean, still some of those games that came out the first year of VR are like some of the staples today, and people were very interested in just seeing gameplay of that. But I got very bored of doing that from like a creator perspective, honestly. I started branching out. I did a lot of different other stuff. I did like There was a time I was doing like esports for VR. I thought that was fun. When Half-Life Alyx came out, I got very interested in doing like map design, level design for that. That was like a good half a year of my life, and then I got into the hardware stuff, and I think one thing I've you know again, I've been doing YouTube, I feel like, for so long at this point, especially in this like tiny industry that's only been around for, or maybe resurged for maybe 10 years. And this hardware stuff is probably the only time I feel like I've had fun making videos for a long consecutive period of time. Like all that other stuff, I had fun, but I would get tired of it or bored or just not enjoying the audience discussions or whatever. So yeah, I just been everywhere.
What it seems the leak side that you're on now would challenge one's, it's going to flex your mind a lot more than just, let me play some games and put content out versus, there's a new technology. I need to understand how's this going to come into play? Where's
No.
it coming from? Who's sending it? So it seems like there's
Passion. You can hear the passion in it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I hear what they're saying versus what I know. You can
It's a
hear the
different
genuine
animal.
frustration.
Totally different animal. So I can see that based on what I'm hearing about you already. That yeah, I could see you getting bored real easy doing that one thing over and over versus like tomorrow you could wake up and you're gonna find out there's a whole bunch of new shit coming. Or
Yeah, the Steam OS updates, and now oh shit,
Yeah.
time to go skim.
They are my favorite times. Like every time, like I go crazy. And I think there's also like a weird, yeah. Obviously, I will make a video every time I could get a big leak. That's inevitable, right? But I think there's a misconception of. So I just released an hour-long video. Most people are not going to watch an hour-long video. And the reason it's hour long is because I want to put a lot of care, and I'm not really targeting the mainstream with my stuff, because there's two things I realize. One, my type of content isn't exactly mainstream, so it's not going to give me the huge success that people think I'm getting automatically. And because it's leaks, I end up burning all bridges with companies that'll send me free stuff. So I'm actually kind of hurting myself in a way, even though like yeah, some of my videos will do well. But the people who re-report my videos in like a quick format, which I'm totally happy. Like that's I like. I'm fine with it. They'll end up getting way more views than me and still keep the bridges. Then there's also the other aspect of doing this, as you guys were kind of alluding to, has made me more cynical about this industry more than probably most YouTubers in general, because I talk to so many people in the industry that are like, I disagree with that. Yeah, I've become so cynical to the point where maybe it's not good for me. But yeah, I think it's also like since I'm already doing leaks and stuff, I want to try to this industry has run on like insane hype cycles for so long, and all those hype cycles have never panned out. I think they've actually been damaging in a lot of ways. Like I can go back to when, I mean, every Oculus Connect, you'd have Abrash on stage, and he'd be like, "Oh, next year we're gonna have eye tracked varifocal and all this garbage, like in our headsets in a couple years." Well, it's been 7 years since he said that, and we still have the same resolution displays from a headset released 3 years ago in a $1,500, 4 times the price product. So it's like, yeah, the cynicism. I'm glad I'm cynical, but it's also like, ugh.
I get it. It's one of those things where sometimes you're so deep in the forest, you look around and all you see is trees. It's like it can be tough when you're that in the weeds.
Well, and there's also, I mean, I think there's a dark side. Maybe not a dark side, but there's a reality to every industry.
Yeah,
that
how's the
exists,
sausage
and
made?
It's not all. Yeah, exactly. The end product is not, it's all prettied up and all that, but doesn't mean the whole process, there isn't something going on in between. So
Anything that's a business in the end makes money,
Mhm.
whether it's food, whatever. Your favorite restaurant, they're
I can appreciate the more necessarily doesn't make you the
the
happiest.
happiest. Oh, 100% not. Especially if you see something just said publicly that you go, well, that's not.
That's not at all what happened.
I just talked to the guy's cousin last week. He didn't tell me that.
painful.
That's funny.
It's painful because you also communicate with people. Like, you fight with people all the time. Like, I remember I gave the $1,500 price point, like, what was that, July? Like 4 months before they actually would confirm it or whatever. And like, people would just message me out of nowhere. I have comments on my YouTube videos like, how dare you say this rumor? All the YouTubers are just blindly saying $1,500 or whatever. It's like, I had to fight with these people who probably spend 1 minute a day in VR, possibly. I don't know. It's got its downsides, but I think for the most part, it's still a lot of fun. It also makes me more critical of Meta, I think, when they release a product, because again, like, you see them spending $3 billion per quarter, and they release a product that is expensive, and they lie about how expensive it really is, and how a lot of features are half baked on release, and how they're not creating first party software for it. It's like, where is that money going? And then you ask around where that money's going, you're like, okay, whatever.
Fall is in the air, and our friends at Vincero Collective has sponsored this episode to make sure all of our listeners are accessorizing their autumn outfits with premium watches, jewelry, sunglasses, and more. Their top-tier designs make sure you look class while you save some cash. Other watchmakers have insane markups, so that's where Vincero steps in. You can have the looks of a premium lifestyle without breaking the bank. For a limited time only, get 20% off plus free shipping site-wide with our exclusive code Ruff Talk VR at VinceroCollective.com. I love the high-quality feel and fashionable look that Vincero Collective brings without breaking the bank. Vincero Collective designs everything in-house, sources their own materials, and produces in small batches so the quality is at the highest standard. Whether you have a work meeting or a nice date planned, a high-quality watch can make a great impression. Vincero offers many attractive designs for the modern individual. In addition to watches, Vincero just launched their commuter bag. This is the ultimate travel bag specifically designed for someone who likes to look good while traveling. This product is made of 100% recycled nylon material, so it is lightweight and you can support a sustainable cause. Vincero Collective also offers iconic sunglass styles with polarized lenses and 100% UV protection. You can block out the sun with style. Feeling confident? Add on to your look with their essential yet sophisticated necklaces and bracelets for both you and for her. And with holidays sneaking up, this is the perfect gift for yourself or someone you love. Buy it before they sell out. But you don't have to take my word for it. With over 30,000 5-star reviews, they have been named GQ's go-to brand for premium lifestyle accessories. Get 20% off plus free shipping site-wide with the code RuffTalkVR at VinceroCollective.com. Support our show and use code RuffTalkVR at VINCERO Collective.com. Accessorize your life at an exceptional price with Vincero.
Today's episode is sponsored by True Classic. Guys, let's get real for a second. Your significant other will be way less upset about your gaming streak if you're looking fine as hell while you play. Finding that perfect fitting t-shirt can be a terrible experience. The thing is either way too tight, has a case of bacon neck, or is just plain big and boxy. Luckily, True Classic makes quality clothing for every guy. Whether you're on VR, PC, Xbox, PS5, or yes, even the Wii, they've made finding that perfect fit easy with their formula. A closer fit in the arms and chest to show off your muscles. We know you're getting a workout while gaming. Let those toned arms shine. Plus, they leave wiggle room in the torso to keep things cozy. All of their styles are super soft, and it's a great price for what you're getting. So guys, no excuses. Don't be a noob. Get rid of those ratty t-shirts I know that you've been hanging on to for years and get ready to upgrade. We have an exclusive deal for our listeners. We want to hook you up with some True Classic. For a limited time only, get 20% off with the code RuffTalkVR at TrueClassic.com. Almost all men's t-shirts are designed to look good on a certain body type. Think skinny models with six-packs or Dscruffles over here. But most of us aren't packing anything but a few beers, and there's nothing wrong with that. My dudes, it's simple. You are wearing the wrong clothes. True Classics tees taper off towards the bottom, but they fit tighter around the chest and shoulders.
you can throw on that True Classic with confidence, knowing they've got your bases covered. True Classic is much more than just a t-shirt company. They have all the menswear staples you could need, from polos and workout shirts with the same flattering fit to boxer briefs that'll keep your boys feeling nice and comfortable. And for any of the big boys out there, they have tall sizing and up to triple XL on all their staple colors. True Classic will make you feel your best by accentuating the places the eye goes to first. Wink, wink. Whether you have abs or a delicious, soft, creamy center, their clothes look great on all body types. Skinny guys, big guys, buff guys, gaming guys, True Classic has you covered. Get comfortable, get going, and upgrade your wardrobe with True Classic. Get 25% off at trueclassic.com with the code word Ruff Talk VR. Free shipping included on purchases over $100. 100% risk-free guarantee with a 30-day return policy. True Classic. When you look good, you feel good.
I wish they'd send us a Quest Pro, but I haven't burnt any bridges, but I don't think we're getting stuff either. And
To be honest, I don't think most people, most YouTubers are.
no,
Put it
not
that
for
way.
not with that price tag. But I mean,
You
realistically,
know what I'm wondering? I'm wondering if they were really going to sell it for 1,000 until you said it was going to be 1,500. And they were like, you
Fine.
know what? The overall reaction to this is
Wasn't too
proving
negative.
the analytics are showing that people are actually accepting of this price tag.
Right.
That'd be some funny shit.
And as you're getting bigger now, I think where you are now, today is much bigger than a year ago. The reality is, at some point in time, I think everybody who starts to get big, just you can't read the comments. The more views you get, the more little 12-year-old haters you'll get too. It can be mentally, a challenge on anybody mentally.
Yeah.
The reality is, and I'll say in my opinion, the Quest Pro leaks solidified you. So it's like, if it's kind of hard to talk shit now at this point. If you say, hey, the Quest 3 is going to be, $599, it's probably going to be $599 in my opinion. If that was the first claim you had ever made, that's different. But
No,
yeah,
I'll be the first to admit the credibility's there.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen the progression when you're showing me shit, and then we've had discussions about some of these things. And
so I think it's obviously easy for me to say, and versus you do. I think at a certain point you just have to hit delete, gone, fuck the hater. They're not worth the mental effort, because there's going to be more of them, but you just got to eventually tune that out, right?
Yeah, it's true. I kind of nitpicked like some of the things, like that was before, again, like the MetaConnect stuff, the recent one. But I am actually pretty happy with my like videos. Again, my community, I guess, and my comment sections. They are very different than when I was doing Let's Play content, for example. Like that's another like feel good moment. You go into detail about the engineering principles of why this hardware choice was made, and you're going to get a lot of engineers themselves going in your comments section and writing research papers, and you can read them and enjoy them. And like, I shouldn't complain too much, because I'm still at the point where, like, a lot of people, again, my content's so weird that it gets a lot of high quality comments still, so I'm happy about that.
so I get a good question. Where do you see? I mean, no one can. Where do you hope to be in the future with this? I mean, you're on to something. Obviously, you could branch out into different directions if you wanted. I mean, do you envision having a whole team working with you someday doing this from all companies, or what's Bradley see as his future?
I feel like I should plan that, but I never did. I honestly, like, I'm always living like every day. Like right now I'm working on, like, it's still just me, and I can't imagine. There's a part of me that can't imagine working with a team doing this, because maybe when I start getting old and I can't stay up late to talk to people in Asia all the time or something. But like right now, because the industry is still small, I'm pretty comfortable with how things are going. Maybe if the industry does explode overnight, I will need to expand this to be like a whole analyst group of people. But yeah, I think right now it's just like I'm just happy doing what I'm doing by myself, because it gives me the most freedom, just to do the things the way I do it.
So as bad as burning bridges can be, sometimes there's pluses to it. It's like you have no
In the long term,
yeah, you're completely independent, and in the end, like you said, everybody who, even if they're not burning the bridges themselves, the news sites, the other The other people, they'll go make the short form content based off of what you say anyway. So, people can hate, but they'll go try to get clicks off of it too. So what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah, what you just said, I couldn't agree with more. The same people that really don't like me leaking and ruining embargoes are the same people that will report on my leaks. So.
Yeah, they'll have a video out that it's $1,500.
Oh, you know they're waiting because they know for a fact that it's going to get some attention. So
yeah,
absolutely.
And, we're in a weird niche as well within, I guess, a niche of VR itself, because we're more of a podcast. I mean, you mentioned you did a 1 hour video. I'm sure it's probably not your most popular video. Podcasting in general, unless you're like a famous stand-up comedian going into it, or somebody with like an athlete, a big following, Jake Paul, you're probably not going to get a bunch of views on YouTube versus like, a standard RSS feed. So it's like, yeah, YouTube's an interesting beast, especially for any long form content. We run into that a lot. And geez, even sometimes uploading a 1 hour video is a lot of fun, just in wait time and stuff like that. But you had mentioned that you're pretty cynical with Meta and stuff like that at this point. Just out of curiosity, what's your overall view on, I guess, the state of the industry with, Valve doing their Deckard project, Apple somewhere in the shadows. Allegedly, we have Meta, Pico's trying to like Kool-Aid Man hop into the market, just freaking burst through the wall like we're here. How do you feel about everything? I know you mentioned you're cynical, but what's your thought with all these companies coming up and just overall the way things are looking right now?
I think we're actually like, have you heard of the trial of disillusionment ever?
No, but I'd be very intrigued to hear.
So basically, there's this like, it's kind of like Moore's law, how it's like like everyone knows like about it, but it's just like you hope that you're not part of it. It's like this graph that shows maximum hype for a new technology, and then it just like goes, and either it just dies forever, or then like slopes back up and starts becoming like halfway and more productive and useful. I think we're almost to that. We're past that trial. They call it the trial of disillusionment. I think we're getting to a place where we're mostly past all these like crazy VR is going to change everything right away sort of things, and we're starting to get more useful use cases and like adding more things to make it in a better place. And I think that's why you're hearing a lot of companies hop out of nowhere, because I know people are like so tired of hearing about new hardware because they think we need new software. But the truth is a lot of these companies are hopping in because the hardware has progressed to the point where they think they can hop in and create something that's useful, and then the software will flow in. We never really had that fully. Even with the Quest 2, there's still some kinks where even though it sold a lot of units, there was a huge problem with people buying it and throwing it in their closet. I think right now in the next couple years, we're getting to a more healthy state overall in the industry. And Meta might not be at the forefront of it, honestly. Like I really like, they're spending a lot of money, yeah, and like I'm so happy that they gave a lot of developers a coasting platform to make money on. Like that's probably the best thing they've done. But I really feel they have pivoted so strongly because they do see like the short term in these companies getting more interested because of where the way hardware is. I think we're in a bright place, honestly, a little bit more brighter, and that comes from a very cynical person. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think
that's a good answer then.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the virtual wars starting, not actual wars, and not that's going to be super anti-competitive or anything like that, but it's definitely, I think we're seeing the point where a lot of different companies are seeing the value. So I think the next 5 years are going to be interesting. It's going to be a constant race of this company releases this, and then with these innovations, but then out of nowhere, boom, this company comes up and they're releasing the same thing but cheaper. So it's going to get fun. And we have HTC seemingly teasing something that nobody really knows if it's going to be anything good, but they're teasing that they have a standalone
tease, though.
Yeah, they seem to be hyping. So things are definitely getting spicy to say the least.
Yeah, the HTC headset, it's pretty much what Vive Flow should have been, honestly. I won't go into it, but like here, but you know, HTC is a small player. I think their hardware concept they have going on is like way better than all their other non-Valve stuff for the consumer in the past few years. But I still worry from a platform, and like they're just so small compared to these giants entering. I don't know how they may compete in the long term, but I do think people are gonna be pleasantly surprised about the concept they're releasing soon.
Sounds like you've heard. I know you said you won't go into it too much here or anything like that, but it sounds like you've heard some whispers about it.
I am literally, yeah. I probably, what was the date? I'm waiting for a. So I worked together with a 3D modeler to make a render of the Quest Pro like back in March or something, based on like images I've seen of a device that would end up being the Quest Pro, right? I'm doing that again with the HTC device, so hopefully in 2 weeks I'll be able to do a huge video about that. So.
Ooh,
That's fair enough.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited for that. So if anybody's listening and they've been, you want to listen, you want to know about that HTC Vive?
I want to know
Or
when
it's-
Pico's coming to North America. is what I really
Yeah,
wanna
that's
know.
a big question mark.
I
So
think the most exciting thing to happen, not even related to HTC, well, I mean, okay, maybe kind of related to HTC, but inadvertently is, there's gonna be a new generation of Qualcomm chip very soon. I think that's like another one of those things that makes companies want to hop in and try to compete more, especially since Quest Pro released with a basically spit shined XR2 Gen 1. So,
and then didn't Pico 4 Pro say that they're gonna have that same one too? Right after Meta said we're the first headset with it.
I don't think Pico 4 Pro is getting it. The only other headset I know that's getting that chip is a Lenovo mixed reality headset for executive purposes. I don't think Pico 4 Pro is getting it.
Yeah, Lenovo seems like they're in a weird spot with VR, but Lenovo's kind of like that with every like niche they go into with all their hardware. They're an interesting company. So I'm guessing you use a Valve Index.
Yeah. You know, yeah, I do. I begrudgingly use it because you go to a lot of these technology shows and you see what's coming in like a couple years. You get to try on some things that you can't talk about. So when you come back home, you realize you can't buy that prototype. You're like, God, I really hate this thing. I just please get this thing out and market, But yeah, I do still use the Index daily.
It's just hard knowing what's coming in the future.
It's painful. It's so painful, man. Oh God. Like it took so long even to get the Pancake stuff coming out this year, and people are like, I was talking about Pancake like early last year all the time, and now we're starting to get products with it, and people are like, oh, that's great. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I've been
Wait
waiting.
until you start seeing micro OLED in like high volumes and stuff. It's gonna be crazy. Anyway.
Well, it's definitely relieving to leave this conversation and go, I'm not the anti-meta guy. I'm not really anti or pro any company. I just want to see the industry grow. But it's good to talk to you and have your thought on it. Be like, hey, look, we're hitting a very exciting spot in the industry. So it's, I don't know, good times coming, definitely.
Well, yeah, it's only going to get better.
And something I have to ask, before we let you go or anything like that. I'd love to ask every guest who's on here, because sometimes we've gotten some good game suggestions out of it too. But for somebody who's actually been in VR for quite a while, what was your first ever VR experience?
Yeah, so my first ever, so this is what started it. It might explain why I'm a bit of a Valve shill when it comes to VR, but back in 2015, Valve partnered with IGN to run a contest where if you submitted a VR game idea, they might pick it, and like you'll get to come to an exclusive private event for press. This event was known as the Steam VR Showcase, and I won one of the 5 or 10 people that won that contest. So I got to fly to Seattle, and actually that was like really the first time I spent in VR, and it was with the like kind of a pre-production HTC Vive, and they had all the big devs there. My first experience was at that event, and it was Hover Junkers, and I got to talk to the Stress Level Zero devs and everything during it, and I told them like it's my first time playing VR, and they were just like, "Really? What do you think of our game as a first time?" And like it was that one, and it was fun times back then.
It's cool to see now that they just had one of the biggest releases I've ever seen, and especially in standalone VR. So that must be crazy to look back and be like, man, that I talked to those guys when everybody was a nobody, and now they're, geez, I think that they're sleeping in a bed made of money. At least one of them, at least two of them. I don't know about the whole team, but it looks like they did good on sale. So that's awesome. And I mean, at this point in your involvement in VR, you're working so much, looking at code, talking with people. Do you still game a lot on your headset, or has your gaming time kind of really become more work?
I think I don't think I really play much VR games these days. I think I spend most time in VR chat in general, which yeah, I get a kick out of that stuff because just to end off of VR chat. Once you find a group in VR chat, and like especially when you're a public figure, a lot of people want to invite you to what they're working on in VR chat, and I always feel like VR chat is just like a bustling community of like Omega nerds that are like always working on something amazing. So yeah, I always get to see what people are working on. It's always like it always feels like the forefront of experimentation for VR, and that's why I always come back to VR chat more than a lot of these games that come out. So.
It's so strange how it's not what I would have expected going into VR before I ever bought a headset, but it's one of the biggest things that keep me putting it back on is that social VR element. It's like I'm not a social dude outside of VR, but like we were just playing Local Dojo with a couple of our podcast listeners last night, and dude, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, much better experience.
Yeah. And VR chat is it's a unique, it's a special place. There's everybody who loves VR chat loves VR chat. It's full of
there's
diehards.
No gray area there.
Yeah.
But there's something for everyone technically, so you just got to find your thing. And
yeah, there's even a pretty popular stand-up comedian named Brian Redban. He does a weekly show called Virtual Redban, and he just goes to different VR chat worlds every week with his little Wendy's avatar and just goes raise as hell. So that's freaking awesome.
I think VR chat also interests me because at least the VR chat stuff I always see. There's the Quest 2, buy a Quest 2 and play Beat Saber all the time. I would say that's like one side of the spectrum. And people who live their life in VR chat are like the complete opposite. Like they buy 7 trackers to put all over their body. They buy the face tracker, the eye tracker. They start plugging MIDI devices in to do like virtual, like it's just craziness. Like it's just
mechanical bowl in the middle of your room,
Yeah, it just you put like they start putting mixed reality anime avatars in your room, so you can start seeing like big boobed half naked anime girls in your house and stuff walking around. Like it's I don't know, it's very crazy. I don't know.
So what's your avatar look like? Is it a more realistic replication of you, or do you have a big old titties?
I don't have big titties, but I am an anime girl in VR chat, as many people are. I'm probably on the very non-revealing character. We'll just say that.
Yes, I always love how provocative some of the avatars are, to say the least.
Oh yeah, some people. Yeah,
and just know when you're interacting with it, it probably is a Bradley Lynch on the other end.
I mean, there is like, I mean, you probably do a whole podcast talking to people about this, but like I choose the same avatar every time I go in, and most people who are full-time VR chatters, they do grow a connection with that choice of character that are just sometimes so bizarre and so wild. Complete opposite of the mindset of these avatars that you see on like Meta or Pico platforms, where they try to be like emoji versions of yourself. Like it's weird to see. I'm still not sure what everyday VR users prefer. Like I know there's like the business.
We've had this.
Can't touch the VR chat stuff, but like just the everyday user.
Yeah, we've had this conversation a bit, and it's definitely, there's 2 different routes. You have like the photorealistic, realistic looking avatars that people try to model as accurately as themselves, And then you have the, I'm going to be a green alien with horns or whatever.
Mhm.
I actually think that the outlandish ones, I feel like, are better for people mentally because it's so not you. Whereas, like, the photorealistic ones, you had kind of referenced this one time, Stratus, about it getting like a little psychologically gray. I think that only applies to you. You'll probably only start using an emoji person as your profile picture if it looks like you. The outlandish ones, it's pretty easy to mentally separate those two. Whereas, like, once you start getting photorealistic, it's a little bit more
I still
gray.
question the psychology of long term, pretending to be something that you're absolutely not, more in more real time space than you're being your actual self.
Mm-hmm.
Like what effects that could actually have on an individual. So I mean, I don't change my stance with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be curious. I mean, we're gonna find out down the road
Mm-hmm.
if there's any effect or better or worse but it is, I mean, conceptually it's like there are people who will spend probably more time in VR chat than they will not in
Mhm.
VR chat. So now you're spending more of your real world in a make believe one.
Yeah. Does your real body start to feel like
What
an avatar?
happens psychologically 10 years
Yeah.
down the road from 10 years of being in that,
I
I would personally think I would become so depressed when every time I took my headset off that I didn't have, I'm not a big Satan guy
Mhm.
with a unicorn horn and wings.
See, I can see what you're saying too, and I feel like that the effects would be like the negative effects would be stronger with a 100% accurate representation of you, because like, yeah, because you're like, well, that's me, but just the cheekbones are a little pushed in, and then it looks so similar to me. Versus like, if it's a green dude, I feel like
Yeah, I don't know,
your
man.
brain's always going to separate. Well,
I'll stick
obviously,
to
I'm
my
never going to be
guns.
green.
I think there's also, I love this. I love this, by the way, this conversation. It's very good. Another aspect I kind of like thinking about is like, what I don't know which side I lean on, because I do see people who spend more time in VR chat than real life, and like to the point where they're even getting drunk all the time. Like they have virtual bars and then they
Is it
drink.
drinking alone if you're in VR? Yes.
Yeah. There's definitely some people that misuse it, but I always like to look at how let's say one day we do have the photorealistic route, and like even you can create homes that look just as real as real life, and you can fill it with expensive microtransaction furniture that look way better than anything you can afford in your real home. Will that make people more depressed about their real life situation when they take off the headset, more than, like, we're not even talking about bodies at this point, we're talking about your environment that you spend actual money on, like I worry about that stuff a little bit too.
It's interesting because we can sit and debate about it, and I think everybody's it's a hypothesis. It's we're gonna see how it plays out.
Yeah,
in real time.
Nobody's opinion is
It's
more
fact.
important than the next at this point.
Yeah, it's the
Just the
only way
long
we're
term.
gonna find out is.
I do find it weird though that given the opportunity, more people go for the biggest boobs they can get for the money.
Give me a fat old ass,
So it's just, that's what had gotten me thinking in the long term.
I think, not to speak for you, I think you lean a little bit more towards preference of looking like you, correct?
If I had a choice, I
Yeah.
would. If you gave me a choice of avatars we can scan you and it'll be you versus not, I would take the me.
Yeah, I say it all the time. Your meta avatar makes me chuckle. I love him. He has the most elegant looking guy ever. He belongs in a public
He's
library
smooth
with a nice
Always
fireplace.
wearing a nice suit.
Probably a nice long wooden pipe too. He just looks so like fancy.
But that's the best I can get. If I could get a full body scan, I have no shame with, who I am and I guess what I look like. But, if I'm going into a world where conceptually the idea is to not be you, then I probably wouldn't choose to be the only guy walking around, wearing a suit or whatever the case is. So it's interesting. And like you had mentioned with people buying, microtransactions of sneakers
that probably carries farther than the avatar, if you ask me too.
We're just going to add to the overall
effect. Yeah.
Again, the depression level, and we're not talking the masses, but there's going to be some that, no doubt. I mean, I even saw it watching the VR chat movie. It was like, wow, there's some people that are. I don't think they like what would happen if the power went out for a month.
Well, let's be real too. There are some people who are just batshit crazy. There's been people since movies
Sure.
have existed who can't
Mhm.
separate that an actor is not the character that they play, and they'll
Mhm.
genuinely write hate mail about a scene that they did on a TV. It's like, that's not really them. I think those same people who struggle with movies and TV shows and separating character from real are going to struggle a lot with the Avatar situation because they're just fucking crazy.
Well, again, what
Yeah.
happens when take a cell phone from somebody today and see what happens. It's like there's
Sure.
court cases of parents being told you can't do that because it's such a necessity. And
Yeah.
so
I'm
what's
going
going to happen
through
when VR power goes out?
through a move, and even me, I didn't have Wi-Fi for a couple days, and I was like, my smart TV doesn't work. I lost my remote, and I was like, well, I have an app on my phone I can use as a remote for the TV, and I was like, oh, not connected to the Wi-Fi. I can't. It doesn't Bluetooth. So even me, I don't think I'm addicted like that or anything. It's like, oh, geez, you
Oh, I
lose the
think we're
Wi-Fi
all addicted.
more than you think. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't not have it in some capacity, you're addicted.
Yeah.
I think that's why like the all of a sudden focus on mixed reality is going to be kind of interesting. Just to go over like the quick, like, people were shocked when I was releasing a cat image of what may be the Quest 3, and they clearly are focusing on that mixed reality element. um, it'll be interesting to see if that really does catch on, because I feel like the current VR community right now, they see the mixed reality stuff, they're like, I don't get it, like, why are they investing stuff in that? But maybe there will be something beneficial from being able to ground even the VR stuff in a more reality view that people are not going to expect right away. So
No, fun next decade, I would say.
It's
The
going to
20
be real interesting. A lot of experimentation too is obviously what's going on in the VR technology world. So
Mhm.
the mixed reality, I'm on the fence with.
I'm actually a fan of the mixed reality potential with the apps and stuff.
Conceptually excites me, but
Execution is
yeah,
what comes. Yeah, of course, like everything.
it's going to come down to that execution.
I think it's going to be like hand tracking. So like hand tracking came onto the devices and really like high expectations. People are like, this is going to revolutionize, but it's taken years for good apps. But now we're starting to get to that point. I think the first round of mixed reality apps are going to be nothing special, but I think it's going to lay the groundwork for some really cool stuff in a year.
Oh, I got a great question for Bradley real quick.
Yep.
Just because, you can even say you don't know, and I'll respect that. But do you have any info on Grand Theft Auto actually coming to Quest 2?
We're going crazy over here about it.
Been trying.
sorry,
The lack of
don't-
information is driving me nuts.
Yeah, I don't really follow the software leaks.
No, I
Mhm.
figured it was
Hardware
just worth
stuff.
a shot.
Yeah, he's it's like desperate. He's shooting from the hip here. He wants
Yep.
his
Just want in. You could lie to me. I'll respect
yeah,
that.
hey, it's it's canned, whatever.
The one thing I always think about is like, again, this is just speculation, but like, I wonder if they ran into a hitch with the XR2 Gen 1 and like processing a whole open world environment, and like maybe they're waiting for the Gen 2 chip to really.
I loaded into Thief Sim. We both did when we started driving around in Thief Simulator on the Quest. We're like, GTA is gonna be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's with minimal scenery going on.
And they didn't tell us how far. Like, did they just close on the deal that the game was gonna be made and then they announced it? Was it already being made a little bit? And then they how far into this process were we when you announced? I think that they might have announced it when the ink on the papers dried, before anything was actually being done.
They clearly did that for the Splinter Cell.
Yeah, which is no moss, right?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately with, Splinter Cell, Assassin's Creed, and GTA are three big franchises, and to have all of them be announced and none of them actually come that'd be a kick in the groin.
Again, nobody's talking, so.
Mm-hmm. Which, hey,
that scares me a little.
We've seen plenty with metagames when like it comes time for a release date, it's probably 2 weeks away, so it could be that strategy too. But it seems like everybody's going, I don't know.
I like the chip answer though. That seems mechanically to make the most sense, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't be surprised if it came on the Quest 3, and they're like, hey, sorry, shit happens, whatever, just forget, kind of move on,
Yeah,
but
surprise me.
Hey, we've passed the hour mark. I understand people are busy. You're making your own videos. You're doing your deep dives. You're up till, 3 a.m. on China time talking to supply chain analysts, whatever. Before we let you go, is there anything that you wanted to say? Maybe let our listeners know how they can find your YouTube, your Twitter, all that fun stuff.
Bradsmells.com. That's a serious thing.
Yes,
Has
that
all
is
my links.
that is your website, bradsmells.com.
It is. Yeah. Yep. No, I mean, it's I love talking about this stuff. Sorry if you're a new viewer and you go on my channel and you see most of my videos are 30 minutes plus. I'm sorry if it's overwhelming, but yeah, it's fun.
Hey, at least if they're coming from us, they're used to
They're
us
used
talking.
to the hour plus.
Yeah,
so
we'll spend a
it'll be
whole
like 30 minutes. Oh, I can watch a few of these.
Yeah, we'll do a whole 1 hour podcast review on just a game. We drop a 30-minute episode, people will be like, "Oh, I didn't get to finish it before I got to work." I mean, I finished it before I got to work. I was expecting longer, so I think that the people we send over, they'll be excited for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I sometimes get people that are disappointed when I don't do long videos because they're like, every morning I'm stuck 1 hour in rush hour, and you always have something for me. So please keep them long.
Yeah.
So
20 minutes ain't gonna cut it.
yeah.
That's funny. That's awesome. So
Now we'll have to get Bradley back on down the road.
yeah, and
because it's obvious. Well, I know he's just going to get busier and busier because the world of VR is getting busier and busier. But there'll definitely be more to say and more to talk about.
Yeah, and I don't think that this Valve Deckard's going anywhere negative, so I think that there's only going to be more to talk about. I know, didn't they just have a job listing get posted a couple months ago that got pulled? So this is how this guy looks at stuff. It's all the minor stuff. So that's awesome. And before we let him go, Stratus, did you have anything else you want to ask?
No, I got what I need to know. And I just got a whole new respect for what
goes
I'll
into
say
it.
a legit leaker does versus what a thief leaker.
Yeah, and I'll say full transparency. A year ago, I might not have talked about your leaks as much on the podcast, but now I see you say this is coming out for this headset.
You've
That's getting. I'll talk about it. Fuck.
The credibility's definitely there.
Yep. So
I mean, I totally agree. Honestly, myself. So yeah.
But hey, I'd even say that applies to us. We say a game's good today, it probably means more than when we first started too. So that's how it goes with everything. So Bradley, thank you again for joining us. Again, that's SadlyItsBradley on YouTube and such, or bradsmells.com. Great little handles, and hopefully this isn't the last time we talk with you here.
Oh no, I had a lot of fun. I think, yeah, definitely have me on again. I would love to talk more. I feel like we got into some very deep stuff that we could have.
Oh yeah, we can go further into that.
Oh yeah, we could have. We've skimmed the waters.
We'll do a group episode on that one.
Yeah,
because we all have our own opinions, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it'll be good if we know the topic ahead of time too. We can all come in with some little thinking points too. It'll be good.
Bradley's gonna do some deep research.
Yeah, so maybe we don't do that. So I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and check you guys out soon.